it's really helpful to have a visual aid to refer back to. And so now opening it up to all of you. So we're going to be talking about these 10 mental health hacks. And the thing about mental health is that the secrets are not really secrets. They're really basic things that are not going to be surprising to anyone today. But the line I hear from people all the time, and I'm sure Dr. Holmes, you hear this too, is that, okay, well, I know what to do. I just have to get myself to do it. And that's where we get stuck. It's the actual execution. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through these 10 things that I'm sure all of you, or most of you at least, you look at this list, you're like, yeah, yep, that makes sense. But then the question becomes, okay, well, like, let's just kind of run through this mental checklist and see kind of where you're at with these things. And, if you feel like you're not in a good place with some of these, just to start to kind of ask yourself, okay, wow, well, what's getting in the way? So am I getting enough? What's getting in the way? And then what can I actually do about it to get myself to a better place for these 10 things? And the truth is there's actually far more than 10 things, but that was a nice even number. And maybe in a future session, we'll do advanced mental health hacks beyond these 10. But I think if you have these 10 in place, you really end up in much better shape. So the first 3 are all your basic physical needs. So if you are not getting enough sleep, if you're not eating well, and if you're not getting physical activity, then you're just not going to feel well physically or emotionally. So we start with the 3 basics. And I really think of these as kind of like the bottom of your mental health pyramid. Like this is your foundation here. And so what is it that gets in the way of sleep? And I think one way you could kind of break it down is to say, okay, am I not getting enough opportunity for sleep? Like, am I just, going to bed too late or waking up too, setting my alarm too early and there's just not enough hours I'm allowing myself to sleep? Or am I having trouble falling asleep? Am I waking up in the middle of the night and I can't get back to sleep? So we want to first ask, okay, well, what is it here? Some of the most common things I hear from folks, it's that, you kind of lie down and maybe you've been distracted with things during the day, but your head hits the pillow and boom, your mind just kind of lights up and it just keeps on running and won't stop. A lot of worries, whether it's things for the next day or kind of big picture things in your life. Sometimes people will just kind of be go, go, go all day and then say, okay, well, it's theoretically bedtime now, but I'm just not tired. And you're trying to force yourself to sleep when you're not actually feeling the physical need for it yet. In terms of, those are things that kind of get in the way with falling asleep or getting back to sleep once you've woken up. A lot of people I work with, though, it's a matter of just getting themselves to go to bed earlier. And the reason why they're not might be because they're dreading tomorrow. A lot of people are really unhappy at work. I talk to, they just, they don't want to go to bed because they know that means they're going to wake up sooner, they're going to have to face the next day. Whether that's because they're unhappy at work or maybe that's, other things that you're struggling with during the day, dealing with difficult people in your life. A lot of parents I've found during the pandemic really struggle, including myself, struggle with that next one. It's like you want that me time first. If you've been busy all day working, taking care of children, taking care of chores, the nighttime maybe is your one opportunity to do something you enjoy for yourself, and it's hard to get yourself to go to bed if you're kind of holding on to that, that precious free time. And then another thing is that sometimes, we get sucked into our devices. We're on, Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and then we just can't stop ourselves. And then before we know it, it's really late, and we just haven't allowed enough time now to get a good night's sleep. So, first we want to kind of take an inventory and check in with ourselves of what is it that's getting in the way? And then once you know which of those factors, and of course there's a lot more that aren't listed here, then you can say, okay, well, what can I do about it? So most of these, actually, I guess all of these recommendations here are really focused on when you can't get yourself to fall asleep. And the thing is, our bodies desperately need sleep, but our bodies desperately need to keep ourselves safe. And so we have this sort of survival mechanism built into our brains where if we feel like we're in danger, and prehistoric caveman times, that's like, you feel like, the saber-toothed tiger is going to come chase you down in the middle of the night, or the rival tribe or whatever. If you feel like you're in physical danger, you're not going to be able to fall asleep, because when you're asleep, you're totally vulnerable and easy prey for anyone who wants to get you. Most of us these days are not in danger of being, attacked in our sleep by a rival tribe or a saber-toothed tiger, but our modern day stresses kind of activate that same fear, anxiety, survival mode system in our brain. So if we're feeling anxious about, about our finances, or about, well, for the last year, it's been about, getting COVID, or about any number of things in our life that are scary and anxiety provoking, it's really hard for our brain to kind of convince itself to shut off and allow ourselves to be unprotected. So we need to give ourselves kind of a buffer to just bring our anxiety level down and our arousal level down, to kind of get us prepared for sleep mode. You can't make yourself sleep, but you can at least kind of give your brain and your body the opportunity by kind of preparing yourself for sleep. So that buffer zone is the space in between, your devices or your work or anything that's kind of firing you up. The buffer zone could be, I mean, reading is one of the most popular things, of course, but also, it could be some gentle yoga, it could be listening to music, it could be taking a long bath. It's anything that just helps settle your system. So that's a really big one. Keeping a consistent sleep schedule, really important for just kind of regulating your circadian rhythm, keeping your body clock, on a consistent, predictable schedule, so that your body knows what to do and doesn't kind of send signals at the wrong time of when to be awake and asleep. Only getting into bed when you're sleepy. This is because we need to kind of condition ourselves to associate our brain with sleep. And if our brain is associating our bed with sleep, if our brain is associating our bed with being awake, being excited, being anxious, then our bed itself becomes kind of like a cue. This goes back to classical conditioning. It becomes kind of like an automatically conditioned cue to be, awake and anxious and upset. So we want to only get into bed when we're sleepy, and we want to save, not do any other activities in bed, except for, we say, the two S's, sleep and sex. Everything else doesn't belong in bed. So that means screens away, which is a really, really hard one for a lot of us. Also, some things we can do is if there's a lot on our mind, a lot we're worried about, we can just kind of write it all down on paper. And that kind of convinces your brain, like, okay, you don't need to keep it up here. It's living on paper now. So it's downloaded. You can now let go of it for the night. And then also thinking about things like caffeine and alcohol, which can actually interfere with sleep, and getting enough physical activity to tire ourselves out, but not right before bedtime, because then that actually kind of wakes your body up. The question about allowing yourself enough time to sleep is another one, and that just kind of comes down to sort of figuring out, maybe setting realistic expectations for kind of how you can carve out enough time to enjoy yourself, and also allow enough opportunity for sleep. No one size fits all there, but that's just something to kind of be aware of if you're not giving yourself enough time for sleep. Physical activity, that is one of the most basic things everybody knows. In theory, we need, and most of us need more of. So it's not knowing that you need to do it. It's just, okay, well, why am I not getting enough? So some of the really common ones there: I don't have enough time. I don't like it. I'm too tired. I just don't have the energy to work out. I mean to, I want to, I know I should, but I just don't get around to it. For a lot of people, physical pain makes it hard to, if you got things with your legs, and it's hard to walk, hard to be on your feet. Most physical activity, not all, but a lot of it requires you to be on your feet. Some people just get bored working out. I have worked with a fair number of folks who when you're really struggling with your body image and you don't feel comfortable in your body. I've worked with folks who just didn't even feel comfortable walking outside, because they're very self-conscious. They don't want to be in public. They don't want to be looked at. If they get outside and they're sweating and they just feel uncomfortable being seen like that, that can be really hard. So so we want to think about, okay, well, what is getting in the way of physical activity, and how do we make it easier for ourselves? So just a couple things on that front. I mean, sometimes we just get caught up in our head with what we think, exercise means. And I specifically chose physical activity there instead of exercise, because yes, there's all the recommendations about, this many minutes per week of, this level of intensity of aerobic, whatever. The most important thing is that you're moving, right? And you can be moving even without wearing workout clothes and even without carving out a half an hour or 45 minutes. We just want to build more movement into our day. And so, maybe that's just, taking a phone call while you're walking, or maybe that's just kind of getting up and if you're working at home, just like using different rooms in your house and just moving in between, different parts of your workday. And I mean, another really big thing is you want to make it as easy as possible. It has to be as mindless as possible. So you're not spending your time thinking, okay, what am I going to do? When am I going to do it? How am I going to plug this in? If it's part of your routine, it's easy. You don't have to think twice. For a lot of people, that's first thing in the morning. For me, it's like I have an hour built in between when I finish work and when I have to pick up my kids from school. So that's my window of opportunity, and I don't have to think about it. For some people, they can get a break in the middle of the workday, whatever it is. You just want to have it at a time that's going to be workable for whatever your routine is. And you want to do something you enjoy, and it's really hard to force yourself to do anything on a consistent basis. And you have to like it. So I really want to think about what are you actually going to look forward to doing? And how do you make it more enjoyable? Maybe that's like you're on a treadmill or something in front of the TV, or maybe you're going outside and you're listening to, your favorite podcast or audiobook or music or whatever, or you're doing it with a friend. Having some social accountability really helps for a lot of us. So anything to make it, bottom line, you want to make it easy and you want to make it enjoyable. And that's, those are two big ways for it to stick. All right, so next up, nutrition. Again, the basics are, you can get the ins and outs from dietitians, but the bottom line, we all know, right? We all know we need more vegetables. We know we want, lean proteins and whole grains and not so much, refined sugars and processed carbs and, junky foods. Like that's pretty well established. But we get into these really hard habits, whether that's because we're craving carbs, we're craving sweets and comfort foods. The stuff that's less good for us is often the stuff that's just easier. It's packaged, you can grab and go. It just takes a lot of effort to chop up a salad. And to, shop for the vegetables and keep them, make sure you're using them up before they go bad in the fridge. That's just a lot of work. A lot of people really struggle from kind of the swinging back and forth between the kind of like a restrictive diet mindset. And then, you can only maintain that for so long. So that just blows up and then you're back to square one. A lot of it just comes down to our habits and our routines. So, again, if we can kind of recognize what it is that's kind of stopping us from eating just a little bit better. And with nutrition and eating changes, I really encourage folks just think at a really incremental level. What is one small doable change? What is one low hanging fruit you can pick out and just not going, dramatic and definitely not going very restrictive, but just is there some kind of positive change you can do? Another thing that kind of gets in people's way, eating when we're not actually hungry, because if we're kind of mindlessly grazing on stuff that's around, or we're eating for comfort, we want to be able to notice ourselves doing that. And if we notice when we're actually hungry, then we can say, okay, well, I'm going to make a conscious choice now of what I'm going to eat versus, okay, I'm not actually hungry right now. I'm bored. Okay, well, if I'm bored, what else can I do with my boredom? So really kind of noticing what it is that's pulling us. Definitely. So like I said, with low hanging fruit, finding really simple, easy first steps, like, baby carrots or snap peas or something, like a vegetable you can eat straight out of the bag, if that helps make it a little bit easier. Being mindful eating that's like a whole spiel. We could do a whole session on that. But basically just kind of noticing your food and noticing your internal cues. Just doing things in moderation, again, like I said, not anything dramatic. And in terms of kind of like the mindset around food, there's just so much just so much really toxic, unhelpful beliefs about, good food and bad food, and I should do this and I shouldn't do this, and I need to punish myself because I was bad, and I need to reward myself because I was good. Forget that. It's really about, well, what do I need to fuel myself? Right? What's going to give me the energy to live my life and go through my day? And what's gonna be nurturing. And sometimes being nurturing for yourself is a bowl of ice cream. That's fine. And sometimes, as long as we're doing enough to kind of nurture ourselves as far as our nutrition needs with the rest of our day. Okay, so moving from those three basics, sleep, physical activity, nutrition, getting into some other things that we can do on a regular basis that just do a lot for our mental health. And the great outdoors is definitely one of my favorite go-tos in terms of mood management. Um, and so, but people vary. Some of us love to be outside and love to be out in nature, and some people definitely don't. Um, or sometimes like we like it once we're there, but we just don't get around to it because it's not part of our routine. Definitely weather is a big obstacle for folks. And I think, especially in this area, we have these like nice little windows in like April, May, and then in September, October, where it's really nice. And then it's really cold or it's really hot or it's rainy or whatever. And it's not always pleasant to be outside. Or there's, massive cicada invasion. Um, Other things that get in the way, yeah, people get bored, people are kind of self-conscious being outside, like I was kind of saying before, especially with folks with, whether it's body image issues or just kind of social anxiety, being out in front of other people. A lot of times we're too tired to leave our house, or we just are, we're too busy. So and then sometimes it can seem like, oh, okay, well, if I'm gonna go outside, I need to do a whole thing and go to a park and set aside my afternoon, and it becomes too big of a thing. So with any of these changes, we want to break it down and make it easy, make it part of your routine, make little steps, and making it workable in your day. So just kind of building a walk into your day, but so you don't even have to think about it, and maybe making it short so that if the weather is not pleasant, you don't have to be out for too long, but just every little bit can help. um with folks who get bored with the same old places. Oh, I just saw a message, someone's outside now listening to this. Excellent, excellent. um yeah, so that's all there, right? Taking a call outside, bringing activities outside, which I think a lot of us anyway, we're kind of forced to do this past year with the pandemic. So for a lot of us, this has just kind of been a chance to rediscover and appreciate the power and the value of being outside. Okay, so the next one, this is probably um, one of the biggest determinants of your happiness. And yesterday the Atlantic had a happiness conference that I listened to a little bit of it, and that was one of the big things they're talking about. Oh, question from attendee: can you discuss strategies for job changes and search at this time due to layoffs? I don't know if we can get there because we're keeping it kind of basic now, but we'll see if let me see if we can fit that in somewhere. Um, okay, social contact. Obviously, this has been a really, really hard year for us as social creatures who have had to stay away from each other. Um, but even before the pandemic, there was a real epidemic of loneliness, and a lot has been written about this. And there's a lot of big picture kind of systemic causes and factors going into that. Um, but if we're gonna break it down and say, okay, well, what's keeping us away from other people, or what's getting in the way of having meaningful social connections? Sometimes, when we're thinking about our mental health, and when we're feeling anxious, when we're feeling down, or we're just not our best selves, we often don't want to burden other people with that, or we don't want other people to see us like that because we're kind of embarrassed, or we just don't feel like it. I mean, that kind of tendency to want to withdraw from other people is one of the big signs of depression. Or, I mean, this is a big one after, a year of pandemic life. It's just, it feels awkward. We're kind of out of practice socially. Um, and and definitely there's a lot of um, related to the pandemic, just a lot of anxiety about, um, getting back out into the world after being kind of shut in for so long. And especially for a lot of introverts, you kind of get into your comfort bubble, and it's really exhausting and kind of overwhelming to think about being out there again and kind of dealing with that pressure to re-enter society. So I think everybody's having to kind of figure out what pace makes sense for them. Um, but in terms of, when we say, okay, well, how do we get the social contact that we need? There's so many different ways, different needs that we have that are met through our social connections. So sometimes we really need someone to feel close with, to confide in, who really understands us. Sometimes we maybe we have that outlet, but we just need other people in our lives too, just kind of hang out with and just to have fun with and be with. And sometimes when we're starting to feel down and starting to kind of withdraw into ourselves, and maybe we don't want to burden other people with all the details of our problems, just being out with other people and having that connection and that distraction and getting inside other people's heads, so you're not just stuck in your own head, that goes a really long way, even if, for whatever reason, you're not going to be sharing your deepest, darkest stuff with those folks. And again, sometimes, after this, pandemic year plus, there's just value in being around other people in our periphery, even if we're not having, real meaningful connection. It's just part of our nature, is we need to have other people to feel like we're part of the world. So, as we're all navigating this whole weird reentry time, I think, we just want to think about, okay, well, what's the next step? What do I need? How do I do it in a way that's not overwhelming? Um, we're gonna, let in the people who want to help us and want to connect with us, and we want to say yes to those folks and let them in. And yeah, embrace the awkwardness that, some of this, especially now, it's this whole reentry thing is going to be awkward, and uncomfortable, but there's value in it too. So we just have to kind of just own that. Um, oh yeah, so to answer that question of whether we'll be sharing these slides, yes. So they are already on Facebook and Instagram, and I will put them up on my website, whiteboardpsychology.com. So you'll be able to find them. All right, so we've had sleep, physical activity, nutrition, outdoors, and social contact. That's our first 5. So our next one is routine and structure. And this was a really big challenge for a lot of folks early in the pandemic. It's also a really big challenge that comes up when we have a kind of a major life disruption. So whether definitely retirement is a really big one I work with a lot of folks on. Or having a new baby also totally throws your normal day out of, that's all gone. But sometimes something big forces a change, and we have to create a new structure for ourselves. And that's often really hard when it has to come from us, because it's much easier for a lot of us when there's kind of an externally imposed structure on us. So if there's a job that you're showing up at, from 9 to 5 or whatever, that is your time that you are there. And that forces you to set your alarm for a certain time in the morning and get out of bed and get dressed and go somewhere. And then you come home and then it's dinner time. So that, and you don't even have to think about it. Whereas if you're home, if you're retired and nobody is forcing you to do anything, or if you, for a lot of folks who were working from home and had maybe a really flexible work schedule this year, or maybe you've switched from, you're a young parent and now you're home with a child, and there's no one telling you how to structure that day. That's really overwhelming for a lot of people. It's Some people are very, very disciplined and very kind of organized within themselves, but I think most of us are not. And so for this, we want to start basic. So going back to, our first 3 things: sleep, physical activity, nutrition. If you use those as the building blocks for your kind of daily structure, then that goes a long way. So consistent bedtime and wake time, regular meal times, and having a plan for when you're going to exercise so that you make sure it happens and you don't have to think about it. All of that just regulates your body, and then you can create the rest of your day around those things. So that's your cornerstone right there. The other thing in terms of routine and structure, we kind of think, well, what does that really mean? often we're thinking about kind of your daily routine, and that's, bedtime and wake time goes with that. But also having a rhythm for your week really helps too. I think something that a lot of us struggled with this past year is that, the whole Groundhog Day thing, right? And every day in the pandemic felt the same, and there was nothing to look forward to, and everything kind of blurred together. So um, so having different days of the week, having your weekends be different from your weekdays. I know that for me early in the pandemic, so I observed the Jewish Sabbath. So Friday night to Saturday night, that's its own thing, and we have special things that we do and certain things that we don't do during that time, and that really helped during the especially during that early period adjusting to the pandemic, because it was like no matter if the rest of the week felt the same, like okay, Friday night we're having chicken soup, we're having challah, we're we're turning off our phones, and we're playing board games, and it's just that day feels special. Um, and so, whatever it takes to kind of have that rhythm for yourself, so that the weeks feel that there's consistency across weeks, but also differences between the days. Um, this is kind of a really basic one, but sometimes we forget, if we can kind of make plans for ourselves on the calendar and kind of carve out time for things in advance. So we're not just kind of waking up and saying, oh, what do I do today? Or, I have this huge block of time, I don't know what to, then we kind of spin our wheels. But if we can kind of think in advance, okay, how do I want to start to structure my time? And we've made a commitment in advance. It's a lot easier to follow it than to come up with it on the spot. Creating enjoyable rituals, kind of like I was saying with, with Shabbat in our family, but, things you look forward to. And social accountability, right? It's really hard to make that routine and structure for yourself, but if your routine involves other people, it's going to be a lot easier to commit to it. Okay, and then we're thinking, okay, well, what other kind of things do you want to be plugging into your day? So another one that folks really struggle with in different circumstances is having a sense of, well, as human beings, we need to have a sense of accomplishment. We need to have a sense that we can do things, and it gives us a sense of control and a sense of pride in our achievement. And when, especially with depression, this is a really huge thing that it just becomes incredibly difficult because everything becomes so much more of an effort. One of the big signs of depression is we just lose our interest, our motivation, our drive to do things we would normally do. So, when it's really bad, sometimes even just getting out of bed and taking a shower is overwhelming. For a lot milder depression, maybe that's manageable, but being able to cook a whole dinner, or being able to just get through just personal admin kinds of tasks, like calling the insurance company about that thing, or you're getting your taxes done, or whatever, just sort of basic life tasks become really hard, and we get kind of easily overwhelmed. Sometimes when we're dealing with kind of big projects or really hard tasks, we just don't know where to begin, and so we just kind of can't touch it at all. Sometimes we have a hard time getting things done because we have certain expectations, those perfectionist tendencies, or we kind of build things up in our head, like I need to get this thing done in the most perfect, elaborate, amazing way. And if we know we're not going to get there, then it's really hard to, it's just demoralizing to even try. So, so if we're having trouble kind of getting things done in our day, we really want to make this much easier, as easy as possible. So breaking things down into small tasks, and when you're dealing with depression, sometimes you really need to break those things down into ridiculously small tasks that might seem silly otherwise, but sometimes that's what your brain needs, is to really break it down into the smallest pieces until it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And we want to just really work through one little task at a time. Because when our mind goes to maybe all the things we need to do and our huge to-do list and the really big projects or the really long-term things we need to work on, it's too much. Our brains can't, we just can't take it in. So it's just one step at a time. And allowing ourselves to celebrate and acknowledge even every little step along the way, even if it seems insignificant compared to the big picture. And sometimes we just need to kind of get real with ourselves, with our expectations of how much we can actually do in a day. I mean, most of us will have, a bigger pot of things that we want to do, or we feel like we should do, or we can do versus, you know, what we can actually physically, mentally accomplish in, a 24-hour period. Um, Sometimes when we're feeling really, oops, sorry. I don't know how to, there we go. When we're feeling really overwhelmed, sometimes it's helpful just to kind of set a timer and be like, okay, I'll only just do 10 minutes. So if there's like a huge room you need to declutter and you look at it, you go, oh God, it's going to take me hours. Okay, you don't have hours. You just, see what you can do in 10 minutes and, give yourself permission to stop then. Or if you've got some momentum going, you can keep going, and that's your choice. Social accountability, this is kind of a theme, right? Was true for exercise, it's true for setting routines and structures, and it's definitely true here. It's just much easier to get through a task when you have somebody who's doing it with you, or who you're reporting back to, who you got a deadline for. So that's, I always come back to social accountability. To-do lists, really helpful, but sometimes they become an avoidance tactic of themselves. I definitely do this myself, and I hear this from a lot of people I work with, that you really love to make the list, but you just never get around to actually doing what's on the list because you're kind of perfecting your list and rewriting it and writing it in different places, and on a piece of paper that then gets lost and then you have to rewrite it again. So you want to write your list in a place where you're going to see it, and then actually start to work through. Pleasure. So sometimes the thing about productivity and accomplishment is that it's an important part of our mental health, but like most things, it can be done to excess. And sometimes when we're so focused on needing to be productive all the time and needing to get everything done, we don't allow ourselves the time to just enjoy things. We get so caught up in our busyness, or maybe we have that kind of puritanical, like, oh, must keep working, that mentality that just doesn't give ourselves permission. A lot of people who I work with who are newly retired don't even know what they enjoy because they haven't had a chance to figure it out. They've just been so busy, work and raising children and just being an adult. And then finally, when you have the free time, it's like, I've never had a hobby. I don't know what I enjoy. Or sometimes people, maybe they know what they enjoy, but they're kind of embarrassed about it. Like there's somebody who I was working with her, what she really enjoys is like having Saturdays to clean up the house and then going into the new week with a clean house. And she's like, but that's really lame. That sounds really stupid. I'm like, no, if you enjoy it, that's great. Go for it. I wish I enjoyed it more. So, you got to own whatever it is. But if you are new to giving yourself the opportunity to enjoy things, or you don't have time to enjoy things, sometimes we just, like most things, you're noticing some themes here. One was social accountability, but one was starting small. So starting really, really small and just using your senses to just enjoy something for just a few seconds even, right? So if you've got your cup of coffee and you're just using your senses to notice the smell and the temperature, or you're outside and you're noticing the sound of the cicadas. You're noticing the flowers, or the green leaves on the trees, or you're noticing the feel of the wind on your face. So just being able to kind of tap into your physical senses is a really nice place to start. And in just those brief moments, even if you feel like you can't carve out time for things that are purely for fun. Giving yourself permission to enjoy and recognizing that doesn't make you a bad or lazy person to have time for joy in your life. For the people who don't know what they like or have never had a hobby before, trying something new. I was just talking to someone this week who's retired and mentioned like music as something that like they never really had a chance to explore before, and we're kind of interested in learning to to play an instrument or something. We're like, well, I could never get good at it, it's too late in my life for that. Forget that. It's not about competition and achievement. This is about if you enjoy it, and try something new, and there's just value in that. And also, again, for kind of for folks who get very busy or who get, easily overwhelmed and kind of have trouble making time for things, putting it on your calendar in advance so you actually make sure you do it. Okay, moving on. So finally, we've had a lot of talk about the different things you can do, being, having your routine and your structure and accomplishments and making time for exercise and all of that. Sometimes we just need to stop. We just need a break, and that's a break in our day or a vacation. Um, and it's often really hard to do that because we have so much to do. We are so busy, or we have this guilt that, okay, if I take a break, it means I'm lazy, or what I call the hero complex for anybody who is a healthcare provider or a teacher or a caregiver or a parent, or in any kind of leadership capacity, maybe in your work. There's that feeling of like, whoa, well, I need to take care of everybody else. People need me. I can't take breaks. I'm a hero. Heroes don't need breaks. Um, and so that mentality is just kind of keeping you, focused on work and productivity all the time. Definitely taking time out has been really hard for a lot of folks this past year when you're working from home and then there's no separation. And so work just kind of bleeds into your whole day. Screens, that's a really tricky one because sometimes we think we're taking time out. It's like, oh, well, scrolling on Instagram is my chance to chill out. Well, yes, in the sense that you're not doing anything else that's productive, but it's not really giving your brain a break either. And our brains actually really need that time away from screens to kind of settle. So we want to have some screen-free time out. A lot of what gets in the way of this is bigger than ourselves. So you can value time out and breaks, but if you're in a work culture or environment that doesn't support it, then that can be really hard. So that's not something we can tackle here. But we start with what's in our control, right? So sometimes it's just giving ourselves permission to just pause. I think, again, with exercise or with taking time to go outside, we kind of build things up to be bigger than, okay, well, I don't have time to, just like I don't have time to exercise because that's a whole workout and I have to go and I have to shower. I don't have time for a break because I've got all these things in my day. So a break can be just like physical activity can be broken into small pieces. Breaks can be broken into really small pieces. And we just have to use them strategically. So sometimes if we can just have enough awareness in the moment to be like, I am not being productive right now, or I'm getting really crabby and irritable right now, and I'm actually not really much fun to be around, or whatever it is, and we can kind of notice that, then we say, okay, I just need 2 minutes, 5 minutes to just step away. Other ways we can kind of create time out for ourselves is giving a chance to transition between activities, which I think has been really hard for a lot of folks during the pandemic. When you lost your commute, which for some people is a huge blessing, not to have to spend an hour driving in Beltway traffic. But when you're kind of immediately going from work to family to personal time, it's just it's too much. Our brains need some downtime between different kinds of activities. Putting down the phone and the screens, and then things like meditation and yoga. Definitely a big fan of all the apps out there. Calm, Headspace. My personal favorite is called 10% Happier. But any of those apps are really good to just give yourself a chance to kind of turn off your brain from what you're normally doing. And as much as I'm saying start small. So we want to create those little micro moments and little breaks in your day, but also we all really need serious time off, as in vacations and multiple days. If again, if our circumstances are fortunate enough to allow that, which that's a privilege that not everybody has. But if we have the opportunity, we want to take it. And then finally, we have all of those. So to review: sleep, exercise, or physical activity, nutrition, right? Those three basic body needs. We had going outdoors, we had social time, we have being productive and having doing things we enjoy, and routine and structure, and taking breaks, taking time out. All of that is really important, but we're not going to get there if we don't even notice that we're missing it or that we need it. So, sometimes we're just so caught up in going on autopilot that we don't have any chance to check in. Or maybe we just don't even have that capacity. Maybe we just never learned how to notice our emotions and name our emotions. Or sometimes we just don't know what we need. Or we don't, back to that hero complex, we don't allow ourselves to have needs. It's like, I just need to keep going. I need to take care of everyone else. I don't need anything myself. No, we're all human. We all have needs. And um, we need to kind of allow ourselves the chance to check in and ask ourselves, well, what do I need right now? Um, and I think especially for caregivers, we lose that because we're so busy, we're so focused on everyone else that our own needs fall by the wayside. But if we ignore our own needs, then we can just deteriorate, and then we're not really any good to anyone else. So it is actually often the selfless thing to do, to take care of ourselves enough that we can take care of everybody else. So what do you do about that? I mean, this is where mindfulness, building your mindfulness skills is really important. And again, those apps like Calm or Headspace, or my favorite, 10% Happier. Um, what those exercises do, mindfulness kind of trains you to just to notice what's going on in the moment without judging yourself, without trying to push it away or control it, but just note it, purely noticing, like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this in my body, or I'm having these thoughts, or I'm having these emotions. And if we're aware of it in a way that's non-judgmental and not trying to control it, um, then we could say, okay, well, if this is what I'm feeling and here's my energy, and we could say, okay, well, what's going to help me right now? What's going to be the most helpful, productive thing to do? Um, and then just giving ourselves permission to meet those needs. So that is, those are the 10 hacks, and we've got some time now for Q&A. Let me see if I can. I lost the. I can't see the questions right now. Actually, let me can get out of stop sharing and just talk. All right. Oh yes.
I think your video is off. There we go. Okay.
Okay. There we go. All right. So, do we have any questions?
So I haven't gotten any yet, but I'm sure now that you're done that some are going to flood in. But I just wanted to say that I was taking notes. I know you said not to, but I had to because there were some things that really stuck out for me. And, like being a mom and, being a working mom outside of the home. I'm also a working mom in the home, but working mom outside the home. And, just being a human being, really. The thing that you said about creating the micro moments is so poignant because, sometimes I feel very pressured, like to oh, I got to do this and I got to get it done to completion. And like I don't have enough time. And so then I won't do it. But if I do just a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit there, and one of the things I tell my patients, particularly when I'm, talking to them about exercising, there was one patient that I talked to, this is like months ago, and she had like a Peloton bike. And she was saying she was doing really, really good. And then something, of course, happened and she got derailed. And she says she looks at the bike every day. And she's like, it's empty. There's like, she's not like she has clothes on it or anything. But she just like, I don't have time. I don't have time. And so I told her, all I want you to do for the next year, because I saw her for her physical, I said, for the next year, all I want you to do is to put on your shoes. Just put them on and take them off. And she was like, what? Put on your Peloton shoes and take them off every day. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, because just finding that time to do that is how we start. And you start those little steps, like it seems completely crazy. And I remember when I started exercising, my dad laughed at me because I would literally come down, I would exercise for 5 minutes, I get off, and I go upstairs. And he laughed like I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, I'm creating the consistency. That's what I'm doing. Micro
Yes.
moments. Micro moments. I
Yes.
love that.
Yes.
Love that.
The psychobabble term for that is chaining. That is the like official psychology jargon. But yeah, so when you're trying to teach a new behavior, you
Mhm.
chain it, but you start, it's like, you start with step one, and then, that becomes like learned and habitual and routine. And then you add step two, and then, you build up. Right. Yeah, we totally have to get out of that all or nothing kind of way of thinking about a lot of this. I got a message. Did you do all the drawings? Yes, I did. Um, yes, it's been a fun outlet. Um, what else? Oh, okay. Just some like messages I've gotten from people before. I'm just seeing now. Um, Observation regarding awkwardness. Literally everyone is out of practice socially. If people see you being awkward, they're probably going to think, oh, good, it's not just me. Yes, 100%. Um, so someone had asked earlier, can you discuss strategies for job changes and search at this time due to layoffs? So that's a really big question that a lot of that goes beyond the scope of what we can cover here. But I would just say, if you're one, I'm really sorry that I mean, that's just a really hard situation that a lot of folks have gone through this year, and it's just really, really hard. So I think when people are in between jobs, one, it's, there's the financial stress, there's the identity and kind of sense of, accomplishment and purpose that gets tied up in our work. And so being out of work and the kind of the daily routine that work provides us and the social network and our coworkers, right? So there's all these things that our jobs provide for us. So when we're out of work, when we're laid off, can be a huge hit to our mental health. So I would say, you start from, okay, well, what are the things that your job gave you that have been taken away now, and how do you create those for yourself? So like making sure you have a daily routine, even if it's just very simple, like you get up at a certain time and you go to bed at a certain time and you eat your meals. Making sure you still have people that you're connected with, making sure you're still doing something that feels purposeful every day, even if it's not going to be the amount of purpose that an accomplishment that you got in, day to day in your job before, just something to kind of keep you feel like you're moving forward. And if you can have those basic building blocks in place, it's going to be a lot easier to, go forward with your job search. And I wish you well, attendee out there in that process.
I got a question. I'm not sure if you can see it from an attendee. Where again can I get a copy of your excellent slides?
Oh, well, they are on Facebook and Instagram, Facebook, Whiteboard Psychology, Instagram at Whiteboard Psych. And the website is whiteboardpsychology.com. I have to, right after we're done today, I will add them to the website so that they will be there. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you can see the message that we got from one of the attendees saying, excellent advice. She appreciates it. Yes, yes. So I think that this is definitely very much needed, and I cannot wait. So for those that are still tuning in, we have another session next Friday. I'm totally going to do a plug. Can you tell them, kind of tease them a little bit with just a little tease, just a little tease?
Oh, yes, I will. And I just realized there's another question I missed. So let me just
Oh,
say that real quick, and then I'll get to the. So with life changes like moving, i.e., selling a house, et cetera, how do you get past just not wanting the change to occur? Oh, this is a really good one, and that could be a really long answer. But getting to that last one, that awareness of your needs, awareness of your emotions, that includes allowing yourself to feel even the unpleasant emotions. So, yeah, a lot of life changes that are the ones that are, I mean, some of them are purely bad. Some of them, the moving could be really good if you're moving somewhere for a good reason. But there's also a lot of sadness that's often, mixed up even in, positive life changes. So kind of allowing yourself to just feel, just acknowledging, okay, this is bringing up a lot of sadness. This is bringing up a lot of fear. This is bringing up a lot of resentment, a lot of, apprehension. Those are all real feelings that are coming from a real place, and you want to give yourself permission to feel those things. Um, and at the same time that you're allowing yourself permission for those feelings, we want to kind of direct our attention to what's in our control. Say, okay, if this is something I can't stop from happening, let me focus on what I can do about it. Either do about the problem or do just to take care of myself, even at the same time that I'm feeling these things. What do you recommend when you move forward in the 10 areas and then slip? Any strategies for getting past these moments? So that's why I let that first slide checklist, and I use it myself too, because these things all seem like common sense when you're in a good place, but then we get busy and preoccupied or something happens and then we slip. So having that checklist to come back to and be like, okay, well, how am I doing with all these things? Is there somewhere I can make some tweaks? So, just again, it's allowing yourself the time to kind of just check in with yourself and ask that question. Thank you for the suggestions. Feeling guilty for not doing any of your suggestions adds to the problem. Oh, so you start small. Start small. I mean, I don't think anyone is getting all 10 of those all the time. So it's just a constant. This work is never done. So just start with one small thing. Okay, plug for next week. We're going to be talking, the topic is, why don't you talk to someone? Well, there's a lot of reasons why we don't talk to someone and reach out and get mental health help, even when, we think we need it, or we don't think we need it, but someone else thinks we need it. And so we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about stigma. We'll talk about access. We'll talk about, just not being aware of our own needs and all of the things that make it hard for us to reach out and get help. That hero complex that I mentioned, that's definitely going to come back. So yes, join us next week, Friday at 12 o'clock, thinking about what gets in the way of us seeking help and how can we get past those hurdles.
Awesome. Can't wait to see you guys. And thanks for participating. And catch you guys next week.
Have a good weekend.
Cheers.